Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and today I'm going to be doing a homeschool end of the year review for our group subjects. So if you're new here, I have a 4th grader, 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old first grader, and a 3-year-old son who's along for the ride. But I'm going to be talking about our family subjects today. So our biggest family subject, I would say, is Torchlight. This is where we get most of our resources from. We did level 3, Innovation and Inquiry, and I have to say, I love Torchlight. I think it's an awesome curriculum. I think so many people try like the K level or the pre-K level years and they throw it out, but you get so much benefit from the older years that I seriously suggest looking into it again. It's more than just a glorified reading list, although the reading list is amazing. We get some of our best read alouds from here. And again, we don't use everything in Torchlight. I will probably make an end of the year review just on level 3 because it does incorporate a lot of different things. And again, we don't use all the elements of it. But I really like that Torchlight does their years by theme. So like Build Your Library does like history years. Torchlight does it by a theme. So I think one of the themes is identity. This theme was innovation inquiry, so really focusing on a growth mindset and not seeing failure as a mistake. So I really like that everything was kind of centralized around that theme. And you're pulling from different areas and talking about different things, but it still fits within that theme. So again, like I said, the read aloud list was amazing. One of the things I also love about Torchlight is it has a lit primer. So it has not comprehension questions, but like critical thinking, conversation questions to really dive into the stories and understand the characters better. And I really like having that ability to kind of draw those out of my children, because sometimes I don't always think of the right way to ask something or to get them to understand a theme. Of course, in the lit primer, it comes with, an overview of the book and also possible concerns. So if there's violence or certain words used or depictions of tobacco use or anything like that, any religious things mentioned, it's in there so you as the parent or educator know when things might have an issue, which I appreciate, or being able to prepare your student before reading that something harder is going to come up for those more sensitive learners. But for example, one of the read alouds, the very last one we just finished was Sweep, the story of a girl and her monster. This centralized around the child labor movement, and it was about a girl who was a chimney sweeper and kind of her story and the abuse that these children went through, even though there was equipment available to use to clean chimneys that didn't involve using small children. People still preferred to use small children, so it really got into rights for children, and it fit really well with what we were reading historically because Curiosity Chronicles is brought in through this. So again, I think everything is tied in so wonderfully, and the book selections are amazing. And I like that they delve into harder subjects, that they're willing to respect the child's voice and let it be heard, and that it's important that we talk about the difficult things in an age-appropriate, safe way for the child, of course, but being able to explore the different feelings, emotions, and tragedies and suffering and grief. Those are all important things as a human being we need to understand. So I would say that went well. Some of the things we did incorporate with Torchlight, which I'll talk about, we did Shakespeare. So I talked about this in my misses. This is something we kind of read, kind of didn't. It talks about memorizing passages in Shakespeare, which I get the point. Understanding the rhythm of a Shakespeare play is helpful, but we only did it with the first Shakespeare play we read just because my kids didn't really like the memorization, and I should know better because we're not a route memorization house, and we don't do anything like copywork or anything like that. But I did like the explanation of certain plays in here, so this was a resource, but I would definitely say not a necessity. This was really helpful. So we did a few different plays. Let's see. And this is obviously condensed. We did Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, Midsummer's Night's Dream, The Tempest, Twelfth Night, Othello, As You Like It, and The Merchant of Venice, and probably more. That'd probably not be it. But these are obviously condensed children's versions of them. But I mean, they don't shy away from the blood and the gore that is Shakespeare and the drama and the misdirection that is Shakespeare. So this was actually really well. What I would do with this is I would often, after we read the story, I would pair it with a YouTube video, so like a Shakespearean interpretation for kids, like a cartoon version. But I do like that it had the cast of characters. So when I'm reading, I could kind of point to the characters, because sometimes Shakespeare plays can be hard to follow, especially when there's such misdirection in them, like characters pretending to be other characters, or they're assumed someone else. So that was helpful. But again, I would always follow this up with a YouTube video of the story. But I have to say, my kids all really liked it. My 10-year-old especially really enjoys Shakespeare now, because she's into the drama and the melancholy and all the emotions that come with being a preteen. So Shakespeare is right up her alley. And I was a little, how would my kids deal with Shakespeare at 6 and 10? They dealt with it really well. They really enjoyed it. Of course, my 6-year-old's favorite was Midsummer's Night's Dream, because it was all fantasy and mythical and everything. And then my 10-year-old's favorite was Romeo and Juliet, because of the drama and the love and all that. So Shakespeare, I think, was a hit. That went really well. I'm glad that Torchlight introduces it at that age, because again, I think it's perfect time for it. So we also, let's go over some of the other books. So we did A Child Through Time. I think this book was really helpful. This lined up with our history. So we would, read about a certain time in history, and then we'd read about that child in history. So that was good. The one that didn't really work through was When on Earth. This was often utilized in Torchlight, but I found that it was a little, redundant, especially after listening to Curiosity Chronicles, and it was just pages of a lot of information, and neither of my kids were really into it, so we often would skip that. So I would definitely say this was not a necessity for Torchlight, but a nice add-on. So of course we did Curiosity Chronicles, Early Modern, Volume 1 and 2, and I do have a specific review on Curiosity Chronicles. I'll link above, where I go into the things I liked and didn't like about it. But overall, I would say wonderful curriculum. I love that it's a world perspective, so you're traveling all over the world during this time period and seeing how different places, what's going on, and how things impact in one area to a next. So I really think that has been wonderful. The pictures, of course, are really good. I like the culture corners that talk about specific things. So I know in one we talked about African masks, we've talked about artists and different things like that, perspectives. So it brings in all these other elements into that historical fact. So again, really liked it. Listened to the audiobook. The kids liked it. Do I expect my kids to walk away knowing every single detail? No. Do I expect them to walk away knowing every single historical figure mentioned? No. Do I expect them to walk away having a general idea of what happened? Yes. We don't do any sort of timelines or anything like that. We just do this. And again, watch the video if you want to see the activities that we are incorporated into that, because again, it's all culturally appropriate. For example, the unit we talked about, we talked a couple units about slavery. There was no coloring page or anything like that, because that would have been inappropriate. It talks about in the beginning of the book how Ted and Mona, the characters in the story, don't dress up on certain characters because it could be disrespectful. So I appreciate that the author, Rachel Myers, takes the effort to make that out. And they did just release the next volume of this, which we will not be doing next year because we're doing a specific U.S. history unit, but we will definitely be coming back to Curiosity Chronicles. I think it was a great resource, especially with the history resources out there. A lot of them are biased or agenda-seeking or one perspective. I think Curiosity Chronicles does a great job offering multiple perspectives. So some of the books we routinely read were Fantastic Failures, True Stories of People Who Changed the World by Failing First, and Toys. So this one, awesome book. We talked about different people who had struggles or were told they couldn't do something and overcame it, and they failed. And I think that's a really good message to send children, that failure is just an opportunity to learn, to get up and try again, that some of the greatest people in this world have failed, and the only difference between a successful person and a person who has failed is the successful person keeps going, they keep trying. And this was a really good book. My kids really enjoyed Toys as well. because this goes with the innovation part of Torchlight and learning about the history of different toys. We learned about Monopoly, toy trains, dolls, all that fun. So it was kind of funny to see that most of the toys came from just people not knowing they invent something and for like a certain type of rubber for a machine and it doesn't work, so it becomes a bouncy ball. So just funny little things like that, that sometimes our oops can turn into something amazing. Another part of Torchlight was this book of innovation, so they get to be the inventor or the innovator, and that was really fun. So we did different activities with this. The kids got to create their own game. They got to make a science rig, so something that would move something without touching it. They got to design their own cars. They got to make their own way of communication without using words, so kind of like a Morse code type thing. They got to compose their own music. We learned about composers, and they got to compose their own music. That was fun because I'm learning to play the piano, so they picked the words or they picked the notes, and I would play it for them. They decide what they want, and then they wrote lyrics to their music, which was fun. They did some baking, so they got to do flavor profiles, and I'll stick a picture of it. We did a variety of different pies, and they got to mix different ingredients, and it was like science meets innovation, and it was really cool to see them kind of explore, and they got to write their own recipe cards of which one worked the best. And then the last one we ended up doing was the Rube Goldberg engineering thing, and I will insert a video of that. But the goal was to make a machine that would move something without you touching it. So we made something that would pour a cereal box into a bowl without having to touch it, and it was fun. I'll have to say I probably took it more seriously than my kids did. We spent about an hour assembling it and trying, troubleshooting different areas of it. For some reason, we couldn't get the cereal box to land perfectly straight. So after an hour, my kids were like, this is good enough. And of course, that wasn't good enough for me. I spent probably another 2 hours trying to figure out why the cereal box wouldn't fall right. But again, perseverance. It ended up working, and it was worth it. But it was fun. And my kids are kind of disappointed we're not going to be doing this next year. But hopefully Torchlight has something in the future that's similar to that. But that was a lot of fun. It was taking, again, that hands-on stuff. And, you're learning about inventors and innovation. You're learning about growth mindset. But this is putting it to use, which was a lot of fun. So the things outside of Torchlight that would be group work would be art. So we did a combination of hardcourt art and Paint Lab, which I'll put a picture up above because that is something I borrow from the library on Hoopla, so it's a digital copy. So this is great too, and again, this goes into more technical things. So I'll show you the last lesson we did. So we talked about still lifes, and they did some painting of still life. So again, it goes into a description, some vocab, some art, and then an activity. So really quick, and again, I think the reason we were able to do arts twice a week this year is because it was simplified. It wasn't multiple steps. There were multiple things you needed. It was, paper, something to draw with, color with, paint, basic supplies. So this was good, and we got to experiment with different lines, shapes, forms, talk about different painters. And Paint Lab kind of let us explore different mediums like watercolor and different techniques and brush strokes. So that was fun. So I thought I'd show really quick some of the work they did this year. So this is self-portraits of my kids. And I like how my oldest one did like a duality of personality there because preteen. And this is my 6-year-old. She drew it while she was sick with a head cold. And then there's a bunch of mermaids in back and unicorns. So, that really depicts her perfectly. Here's another one that they did. This was my 6-year-old. So like a 3D art. They did a stained glass project. This was a collage, like a multi-medium, so it's supposed to be a storm using like Mod Podge, tissue paper, charcoals, all that. They did some tea staining painting, so this was my 6-year-old, and this was my 10-year-old, so that is her tea stain painting, so painting with tea. And this was this is a version of her still life. This is what she did, a 3D version of still life. So this was her favorite food, which looks like a sub sandwich, Doritos, and lemonade. And she got to create all the food and everything like that. So art was really good this year. We got to really just explore and try new things, and there was not, dedicated do this curriculum type thing. We would follow along with this or whatever paint lab, and often the paint lab would coincide with, things we were doing in Torchlight, which was, again, perfect. So the only other thing we did was science. So we did core knowledge science, again, completely free online. We did 4th grade. So we started the year finishing off our human body study, which we incorporated core knowledge. We did all the human body units from kindergarten to 5th grade. So from basic human body systems to hormones and reproduction is where we ended in 5th grade. So we covered the gauntlet of the human body, which I think was really good, especially with my 10-year-old reaching those preteen years. I think she's having a better understanding of why, she's getting so irritable so easily. So that was beneficial. So what we did cover, we didn't finish the 4th grade year because again, it's leveled in core knowledge. We did cover energy transfer and waves. So sound waves, light waves, all that type of stuff. And again, the core knowledge is super easy to use. We didn't have to buy any weird materials. The demonstrations are things you have at home. So, and it already had us all the YouTube links and everything for it. So I think it went really well. And we got to do some different experiments with that. Some other things we did with Torchlight is we learned about globe making, which I thought was pretty cool. And they got to make a paper mache globe, which was actually a lot of fun. One of the things we learned in one of the units was candle making. So they got to make candles. And yes, I do own a candle maker and wax. And no, it's not for me. My husband really enjoys making candles, so we did not have to buy any of the materials. He already had the wax, the candle warmer, the wax, and the wicks. All that he already had. So that was actually really fun, and they got to experiment with different scents and stuff. So I think group subjects is probably some of our favorite areas to work in because it's just a lot of exploring and learning and not a lot of, paper workbook type work. So some of the things we didn't get to, we did not, like I said, get to a foreign language. That's something we're going to tackle as a group subject in summer. Of course, they're going to be doing different subjects. My 6-year-old will be doing Spanish, 10-year-old doing French. We did not get to geography this year. I was hoping that is something we can incorporate, but that will be completely fine because next year we're going to be doing a specific U.S. history unit, and I'm going to be incorporating geography into that. The one thing we didn't get to that I'm kind of sad of is Little Justice Leaders. It's a social justice themed subscription box, but we had some budgetary things come up, and the $50 a month for a subscription box is one of those things that unfortunately got cut. But again, I look forward to incorporating that next year, but we still talked about social justice issues, especially with using Torchlight and talking about different aspects of that and, talking about Trail of Tears and things. So we were definitely still talking about those things, but we didn't have the wonderful resource that was Little Justice Leaders. And as far as group subjects, we did have a co-op. I helped run a co-op with another mother. That went really well this year. We covered things such as poetry tea time, photography, science experiments. We just ended with a veterinarian study. We do seasonal parties. So we did, Halloween party, Valentine's party. For Thanksgiving, we did a Native American study and did a cooking class together. So we incorporated all those little areas too, and that was a lot of fun getting together with kids and parents and just exploring different things and having fun. So that's went really well. It's our 2nd year of doing that. Next year will be our 3rd year of doing co-op. But overall, I would say group subjects went amazing. I mean, there was, some things we didn't incorporate, like the Ken Lovewood Shakespeare book. But overall, everything went really well. And I think a lot of that is due to resources like Torchlight that plan out different aspects so you don't really have to scramble and find all these different resources because if it's not laid out for me, I'm not going to get to it. I know I'm not going to be able to schedule it in. So I like the Torchlight is able to pull in all these different resources, whether it be art, history, science, whatever it be, and it all work and twine together. So this year of inquiry and innovation went extremely well. and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So if you have any specific questions about our family subjects, leave them down below. If not, thank you for watching.